Hi, my good friend Suzanne Tobias asked me to share my views on the energy transition, in particular in relationship to climate change. Now, this year and the previous years, we've seen unprecedented rise in global temperatures. I think the average temperature on the planet has already increased by 1 degree, and we have, signed the Paris Agreement to try to limit that to 1.5. But also recent evidence suggests that we're already perhaps on the way to an increase to 3 degrees by the end of this century. So it's urgent that we do something about it and increase activity to reduce the emissions. Why am I hopeful that we will still be able, to manage that to some extent? Well, first of all, at Earth Day earlier in the year, in April, Ipsos, a global consultancy, did their annual survey, and they asked the global populations, thousands of people all over the world, what their concerns are. And it turned out that 2/3 of the global population is very concerned with climate change. They think it's a bigger issue than COVID-19, even though that is a concern. And they want their governments and businesses to do more. 2/3 of the global population. In certain countries, such as China, India, Mexico, that number was actually more than 80%. So there is tremendous global support for climate action. This is not tree hugging, this is mainstream. People want us to act, and we have to act now. Another thing to consider is that we're also seeing tremendous support in capital markets. I mean, a recent survey done by Bloomberg showed that the market capitalization of green companies is now outpacing that of fossil fuel companies. And they gave a couple of examples. Nextera this year in the United States, for a brief moment, was valued more than Chevron. We've seen Enel becoming a much more capitalized company than Eni in Spain, and Ørsted is worth more money than BP. So all of those things lead to also capital markets, looking forward and rather investing money in companies that are part of the solution going forward. Now, if we then look at, the role of energy in climate change, obviously the energy sector, which is one of the largest economic sectors in the world, is a big contributor to climate change. When we burn fossil fuels, which is what we do for our heating, to produce electricity or for transport, we do emit CO2, and that, we use the atmosphere as an open sewer. It just gets there and it sticks there, and it causes climate change through global warming. So what can we do? And we've seen in the last 10 years the tremendous growth of renewable electricity. So at this point in time, the cheapest form of power is solar in many places, it's wind in many places, and it even starts to become cheaper than keeping existing fossil fuel plants running. So even if you disregard the capital expenditure that went into that, just the running cost of fossil fuel plants at this point in time is more expensive. It's higher than new solar or wind. So that is a great thing. And we've seen a massive increase in the investments in the electricity sector. Big countries such as Germany, for example, this year will be the first year that more than half of all the electricity that Germany requires was generated with a combination of solar and wind and a little bit of biomass and hydro. So that is, one of the success stories of the energy transition. But we also have to realize that electricity is only 20% of all final energy. So 80% of the energy that we use are molecules, and that is gas, natural gas, it's fuels, it's oil, it's diesel to run our cars and trains and planes, and it's coal. Unfortunately, we burn still a lot of coal for power needs and also for heating. So the new thing this year is that we've now also started to understand that we can also change the molecules and we can turn them green. And the main driver for that is the emergence. Well, it was actually driven by the availability of green electricity. but also a very simple process called electrolysis. So if we take green electricity, we can actually split water, which is H2O, into its two components, hydrogen and oxygen. And hydrogen is an extremely powerful molecule. It can replace, almost all hydrocarbons where electricity has limitations. So one of the drivers of the energy transition is going to be electrification. So we have to use more electricity, and we're doing that. For example, in transport, we can use more battery electric vehicles. We can, switch industrial processes to burn, from burning hydrocarbons to use electricity. But again, we're only 20% of all final energy is electricity. That can increase to 50%, and the other 50%. I think the biggest potential to cover and replace hydrocarbons in that space is hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives. For example, you can use hydrogen to combine it with nitrogen from air and make ammonia, and you can use ammonia as a marine fuel. You can use ammonia to burn in a coal-fired power plant, where you can still keep most of the investment alive, but you clean up because there's no carbon in that burning process. And hydrogen has shown a huge interest. We've now seen most major economies in the world issuing hydrogen strategies last year, and that is continuing to grow. And I think it's important to look at Europe, because Europe issued the hydrogen strategy on the 8th of July in 2020. And it is actually, it's really, really ambitious on hydrogen as a replacement for, predominantly natural gas, but also other transport fuels. So these are some of the elements of the energy transition that make me hopeful that there are solutions that we can work on that create jobs, that create wealth, that drive the economy going forward, but at the same time. They're clean and they don't, pollute the atmosphere like we, have been doing for the last 100 or several hundreds of years. But they provide an opportunity. And the great thing about both green electricity and green hydrogen, for which you need green electricity, is that you can do it everywhere. There is not a single country in the world that doesn't have some form of potential to produce green electricity and green molecules for that matter. And that's why I like saying that both green hydrogen as well as green electricity, they're clean, they're green, and everywhere. And I think this is a great moment in time. We have a problem. We know we have to do something. People expect us to do something, but we also have the solution. And that's that's in the sense it gives me hope that we can actually tackle this climate crisis. So if you're looking at the situation, we're on a pathway to more climate destruction with the 3-degree scenario. I think we can turn the corner if we all get our heads together to the solution and focus on that. Put our best minds to it. Money is not the major problem at the moment. There is money available. We've seen that in the investments and the market cap of clean companies compared to fossil fuel companies. Capital markets recognize that this is a great opportunity, and together I think we can make it work. So keep up the good work.